collectively as a community. And even though there were people saying, y'all are this, you are that, Imam Muhammad boldly stood up and he began to teach his Muslim community the Constitution of the United States of America. And he told us collectively, regardless to what people are saying about you, as long as you're protected by the law, as long as you're protected by the Constitution, they do not speak for America. They do not speak for the values of America. The values of America are embodied in this Constitution. And he encouraged us not to resort to any violence, but to use the systems already in America to redress America for its wrongs and the things it had done against African American people historically. And for us to engage our country, take on our citizenship, and enjoy everything the Constitution promises us. And then he opened it up and we began to join the military. And now you have Muslim chaplains that originated in this movement here. Now you have Muslim judges. Now you have Muslim city council people. The first Muslim mayor in America was in Coots, Texas. You can almost walk there from here. And it was right next door to the racist, one of the most racist areas in America called Vidor. In Texas called Vidor. And so you have Vidor, and then you had Coots. And you know Vidor because of James Byrd. What happened to James Byrd? Right, or was that Jasper? It was one of them. I think that was Jasper. But you know Vidor. We all know Vidor, right? And right next door to Vidor, Racist County, was the first African-American Muslim mayor in the history of the United States of America. So, brothers and sisters, we have to frame the conversation. Our values as Muslims are American values. Our values as Muslims are spoken very clearly in the very founding language of America and the Constitution of America. If you understand Islam, if you really understand it, the American Constitution, by promising its citizens the ability to practice their religion unmolested, actually serves the purpose that an Islamic state served historically. That was the purpose of an Islamic state historically. The reason they had to form an Islamic state is they couldn't practice their religion without being oppressed. They couldn't practice their religion without being killed. They couldn't practice their religion without being maimed. So they had to establish something that they had control over so that they could practice their religion freely. And that was the purpose of the Islamic State. So the American Constitution, for us, the fact that it protects our rights to practice our religion without fear of the government, and the fact that the police department in America has to come and protect our mosque because we have rights as citizens. And if anyone comes against this mosque or threatens this mosque, that the laws that are in place, they can be brought up against charges of making terroristic threats. They can be brought up against charges of hate crimes. That's what the American law promises us as Muslim citizens. And that was the purpose of the original Islamic State. Some people don't like to hear this because they have a fairy tale idea in their mind. And I'm not the only one that's saying this. Matter of fact, I read this. I did, and see, all of you are saying you must have read that where Imam Waradani Muhammad said. Imam Waradani Muhammad didn't say this. Dr. Sherman Jackson said this. Professor of Islamic Studies. He wrote a whole article where he talked about what is the purpose of an Islamic State, etc., etc. And he said the fact that America guarantees its citizens the right to practice their religion unmolested. Therefore, it serves the purpose that the original Islamic State was intended to serve. Now, doesn't that free you up? Doesn't that make you free? That's why we have at this mosque right here, veterans. That's why we have at this mosque right here, veterans of Vietnam who fought in the Vietnam War. That's why we have a number of veterans in this mosque. One of the former imams, Imam Ibrahim Kamaluddin, was a veteran. My father, Imam Otis Kaleem Ali, was the first Muslim to go set up a masjid that we know of on a U.S. military base in the 70s, 75, 76. And he said the reason he did it, because if one day his sons would have to serve in the military, this was before they started to put women on the front lines. This was when it was still mostly men in the military. He said if his sons ever had to serve in the American military, he wanted them to have the ability to practice their religion. Oh, you who believe, be persistent, standing firm for God, witnesses in justice, and do not let the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Allahu Akbar. Now, this is so profound when you begin to study it from Arabic. It's so profound. Because when it says, لَتَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ لَتَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ, this noon is emphatic. It's an emphatic noon. Now, when you look up this word jarrama, it means it suggests that you should not be induced or incited by any means not to do justice because of hatred of people. Rather, you are the one that has the hate, or if people hate you. Our planet has a long history of hate, brothers and sisters. And our planet has a long history of atrocities committed because of hate. A long history. And the atrocities that we see happening around the world, we have to call them what they are. There is no justification. It's an oxymoron to even mention murder and killing innocent individuals in the same sentence that you mention Islam, the Quran, and Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, there was a lady named Hind who hired an assassin to kill Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not Prophet Muhammad, but Hamza, the Prophet's uncle. She hired an assassin to assassinate him. And he did. Now, later on, that person became a Muslim. Isn't that powerful? But after she had him assassinated, she walked up, cut him open, pulled his liver out, and bit it. Chewed on it. Now I want you to think, if you saw your relative, your father, your uncle, your wife, your sister, somebody close to you. You know somebody paid to have them assassinated, and then once they're assassinated, they go cut them open, pull their liver out, and chew it. Later on, when the Prophet and the Muslims restored Mecca back to how Abraham left it. See, people they miss it. They think that they don't realize that when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took the idols out, that it's a justification for going into different countries and tearing up historical artifacts. No, it's not. He restored it back to the state it was. You got it? When it started, it had no idols in it. That was its original state. Others came and desecrated it later by putting idols inside it. So when he went and cleaned it out, he just took away what had been put there that took it away from its original state. So somebody will get an idea, okay, well, we can do it, get a tank and go blow up a statue someplace, thinking that they're friends. That's insanity. That's not using your rational mind. The Prophet ﷺ, when he came back in Mecca, he restored it back to itself, and the Muslims gained authority over Mecca. It came time to deal with Hind, the person who had his uncle assassinated, cut him open and ate his liver. The Prophet ﷺ could have put her on trial. Could have put her on trial for war, for crimes of war. He could have done a lot of things. But he didn't. He forgave her. Ask yourself if you could do the same. When the Prophet went to Ta'if to try to call them to a better way of life, the children of Ta'if stoned him out of the city with rocks. And they say he was bleeding so much that you could hear blood in his sandals as he walked. And whether or not you accept it as metaphor or legitimate, the angel of the mountain came to him. Some people imagine like a real angel. Listen, it's the moral of the story. That's what's most important, the moral of the story. Right? Yes, the angel came to him, but he didn't have white wings and a halo. And he said, we will bury Ta'if. So one person could argue, well, why would God do that? Why would he give the prophet that option? It was never about the prophet. It was about teaching you and I something. That whole story is about teaching you and I something. Look how mad you get when somebody cuts you off on 610. I'm serious. Right? If you had the angel of the mountain, you would flip cars over and not do anything them. You would behave insanely. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said no. Don't bury the city. Perhaps something good will come from the children. The same ones that threw rocks at him as he left the city. That's our motto. That's our guide. That's our leader. He would have never condoned mass murder. He would never condone killing of innocents. And neither should you and I. And we should not let people's hatred of us or our hatred of people, may Allah protect us from hate. Hate will consume you and destroy you. But if you have some hate in your heart, never allow it to make you swerve from justice. God says, justice, is a command. He said, establish justice, for that is closer to taqwa. In other words, it's closer to God consciousness for you to be just than for you to allow hatred to cause you from being unjust. We have to conclude. We're almost 30 minutes in. So we'll finish the Jummah prayer proper, and then I'll finish what we have to share today after that, inshallah. So we'll break this into the first half. We'll make a very short second half, and then we'll have our Jummah prayer. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله